Hello and welcome. We are live streaming. This is the Transform Your Relationship Show. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Good morning, Laura. We've got an exciting thing to talk about today that most people would really like to understand.
We do. And, ah, sorry, my. So, our show is all about criticism and demystifying it. And it's a hot topic because so many people think they're being constructive with criticism. So many people can't help themselves. I know sometimes I can't, but criticism is not what you think it is for the most part. It's at least that's what I found. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know what you found, Laura. Tell us.
So, a lot of times when I found myself being critical, it was just always about the other person. The other person is like upsetting me. They're doing things either on purpose or I'm just getting agitated about that because they're not doing it right the way I want it. They need to do it differently. There's a better way, something. There's all kinds of rationalizations going on. If only, and then there's the if only statements. If only they would do this, I could be happy, or if only they do that, I could relax, or, I'd be taken care of, or, something. It's just like all about them changing and doing something differently so I can have a better life, so to speak, and I can feel better and I can be freer and we could have a better relationship. And, um, you know, after many, 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 many years, at least that's what it felt like, um, if it not really working, I'm just having one complaint after the next, and the complaints never stopped. I took a different look. It actually took a relationship breaking up to say, uh, oh, maybe I'm not happy and there's something in here. So how do I be happy? Like I had to start asking these questions that made me see how hard I am on myself and how not loving to myself I was. And so I was just doing that to somebody else. And being hard on myself didn't make me happy. Being hard on them didn't make me happy. So there had to be another way. And
Yeah.
uh, a therapist at one point said, Laura, it's okay to put away the whips and chains and have some compassion for yourself. And I'm like, I'm not sure I know what that means or what that looks like. And so it was kind of a step-by-step uncovering of, well, what does that mean to be kind to myself, to be compassionate with myself, to be forgiving of myself. And me, myself, and I, that is, had to come to a relationship. Me, my inner critic, and my heart had to kind of come into relationship. I do something called Soulcollage. You might find this interesting, and that's a process of working with images to reveal things about inside or express what's inside. And I made a card called my critic healer. And, at one point, the critic was not a healer for me. The critic was very critical and very harmful because I thought I had these high standards that I wanted myself and other people to live up to. And that was the only way life was going to work. If we had high standards, if I was going to be a success or I was going to get to fulfillment or get to wherever. And so this was recently making this collage card with this sage-like woman. She was of Native American descent, but at the same time, she had a very stern look. But the energy was more, yes, I'm still here, your inner critic, but I'm not going to hurt you anymore. Because we now have a relationship. You understand my highest intention is for your good, but we have a compassionate side too to heal. And bringing those two together over time has been a process and a journey. And sometimes it goes backwards and I find myself getting agitated and criticizing others. But then I go, stop. I say, okay, this is how I use my inner critic. I say, okay, you're unhappy. What's, or I'm unhappy, but I'm talking to myself. I'm unhappy. What is the source of my unhappiness? It's not out there. It can't possibly be out there because there are people out there happy and same things or worse going on. So what is it that's going on here? What am I unhappy about? What needs to shift? What can I do about it? And so my critic becomes a healer because it's just a little red flag to say, hey, turn inward and start looking at what you need for yourself to do for yourself. And it's not about somebody leaving shoes or socks out or not getting something on a to-do list done or not taking care of themselves. If there's a worry, deal with the worry. If there's a concern, deal with the concern. So that long-windedly is what criticism is. It's and then it's like if we're not looking inward and we're only looking outward, it's a demand. We're demanding someone change because we think that's the right way to be or it's going to make us happy. And that's not necessarily true, though it feels so true. Can you relate?
I so agree with you. I mean, what a tremendous amount of work for you to go through and come to such a healthy place. You know, kudos to you. Many people don't go through that process and don't even know there is a process to go through. So I think that's great. And I have a couple of things in comment on that because you said quite a bit. One thing that I would like to erase from the entire vocabulary of the English-speaking world is this phrase, brutal honesty. I don't think there is ever a need for brutal honesty unless you are at absolutely the end of your tether. And even then, you can tie a knot and hold on and not have those words come out of your mouth. You know, I have a friend who somewhere in her vocabulary all the time, she keeps saying, well, to be honest with you. And every time she says that, I want to say to her, well, aren't you usually honest with me? Right? You know, we have these strange things that go on within us. And so my first thing is let's unhook those two words, brutal and honest, because there's no need to do that to yourself. You don't have to be brutal. You can be loving and gentle and still be diving into what's important for you. What do you need? What are you trying to express and how are you expressing it? And what would maybe be a better way that would make your relationship with yourself and with the other person better? And the second thing that I heard you say is that once you go through that, and I think the inner critic is a great expression for it, but I think most of us have an entire inner courtroom. We've got all the people from our past who are chiming in as we're sitting there talking to ourselves, and they're trying to say, oh, no, you always did this, or you never did that, and oh, you've done that forever, and you're not good enough, and you will never, there's all this stuff as well as the good stuff. But the problem with us is that we easily remember the bad stuff. We don't remember all the wonderful things that people have said. Now, you just had a birthday party, which was great. And an entire room full of people told you how wonderful you are, how gentle, how loving, how generous, how enlightening you are, what a help you are, how much they love you. For you to take all that in means that you have to shush the inner courtroom that ever said that, oh, I'm not doing that well enough, or, whatever it was that was saying, right? To really just let that shower of wonderful things of all these people and lots of people saying those things. But when somebody says something wonderful to you, this is the flip side of the criticism. Many people, especially, and my favorite topic, but especially if you've been raised by dysfunctional people or hijackals, many people cannot hear that. They just can't hear it. When it comes in, they discount it as fast as they can because they can't trust it from that background.
Yeah. coming through a process of having that inner courtroom being front and center and the drivers in my emotional state, being able to go to a place where now they're just advisors, and I can see them as well-meaning advisors, but they don't drive, right? They give me signals that can help me in my practice of self-compassion and in my practice of honoring other people. In fact, I have these amazing feminine power cards, and I say they're amazing because every time I look at them, I'm like, um, they're really cool. And yes, I created them, but how they came about was during this time of transformation, of dealing with my inner critic. I was learning to behave in a new way,
Right.
and I wanted to embody those new ways that I knew were healthier because they were making me happier and they weren't hurting anybody else at the same time. I guess that's my definition of what a healthy interaction with people is. And so I'd write these nuggets down, and they weren't necessarily my nuggets. I embodied them and I made them my own. And they had this very rudimentary stack of index cards that I'd flip through when I was in the heat of this courtroom screaming at me. And then I pick up one and it would say, okay, honor the wisdom of another to heal him or herself. Oh, well, what does that mean? Well, wouldn't that be good? It says the practice of that is refrain from giving someone advice today.
Well,
Just listen and trust that they have wisdom to find their answers. Go ahead.
yeah, let me say something about that. Refraining, right? When I was mostly a single mom and I raised three kids, and I told them that when they turned 21, I would refrain from offering advice or trying to solve their problem or fix anything, but I was always here if they asked. And I think that's the key,
Yes.
is remembering that you are not a parent. So much as you might love the person and care about them enormously, be respectful and don't jump in. You might say, well, I've got a few ideas about that. And if they don't say, great, tell me, then don't tell them. But becoming respectful about that, because we don't let our children individuate. They have to make decisions that work or don't work, and that's how they write the story of their adult life. And if we think that we have to jump in and constantly tell them how to do things and what they should do and why they shouldn't do something, we are robbing them of the experience of creating the story of their life. And that's a transition that has to happen when our children reach the age of majority, and maybe they need some help as they start on their way, but I set the arbitrary date of 21 because it was in Canada, and that's when you become an adult.
There's so much I want to say to that. Is there something else?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, and it takes practice to refrain. And it is truly honoring somebody else to refrain from giving advice, because what I say is you're honoring their wisdom to heal themselves. You're not only robbing them of the story of their life, creating that, but their power to heal, to transform, it's like you have to do it and you don't. And isn't it wonderful we don't have to have that burden to rescue people, to solve their problems, to make things right in their life? We can let them swim. We can let them explore life. We can watch and learn from them, because who knows what they're going to create. It's just a magical experience if we could just listen and trust they have the wisdom to find their own answers and create, love how you say it, the story of their own lives. And when I realized I'm robbing someone of their own ability to heal themselves, I was like, I don't want to do that.
No.
No, I want them to heal. That was my intention. But my my rescuer or my critic really was jumping right in there, because that part of me knew what was right. But you know what? So much more is available when we do less.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just add something to that. Many times people jump in to tell other people what they should do because when they're focused on other people, they distract themselves from reflecting on themselves. So if I'm all about other people, then I don't have to do my own inner work. I don't have to reflect. I don't have to become self-aware. And that's something that many, many people do. They go around looking for what can I say or do or be involved in other people's lives as a distraction from getting to know their inner self.
I also find it a distraction from the discomfort of being with that person in a tough place. So, like if someone's depressed, you just want to fix them, right? You just want to, oh, here's a positive story, or here's a comedy to watch, or can't you just go see a psychiatrist or take a pill? And why are we saying that? I found out I was saying it because I was uncomfortable with their depression or
Yeah,
their
get over
situation.
it so we
Yeah.
can go back to normal.
Yeah, so I want to fix them so I can be comfortable. Well, that's pretty selfish of me,
Yeah.
if because I can't be with their negative state of mind. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. But if I honor the wisdom of that person to heal themselves, if they're not asking for help, if I've offered to help and they decline, what can I do? What more can I do? I mean, this is a tough spot, I imagine, for a lot of parents because so many kids will push them away, or siblings or other family members will push other people away. And, if something happens, you feel guilty. So, what would
Mm-hmm.
you say to that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that what we're talking about, from my point of view anyway, is not saying that you can't say anything. You can say, well, I went through that and I learned a few things. And if the other person says, well, tell me about that, I really want to know, then you're in the conversation. So you can put something forward. It's not jumping in to fix, like you say, and saying, well, I want you to get better. And of course, you do want them to get better generally. But when you really uncover it, as you said, I want you to get better so it's not a problem anymore. And I helped you fix it. And I feel even better about that. I mean, in our work, we're helping people all the time. And I do it by information and empathy, really, is, maybe you didn't know this. Yes, I hear that you feel that way. I felt like that too, or I've had that experience, or what's driving that, or you can ask questions that help people think about it themselves without coming from you wanting to be the superhero. Jump in and say, oh, I can fix this. Here's all you have to do, like all that. I have a ton of experience, as you do, having worked with hundreds of people all over the world. I have ideas, but when they come to work with me, they've already asked me to help them. But if I'm out with my friends, if I'm over at your house having dinner, I'm not going to jump in and say, I've been thinking about this and you should change this. That's not the relationship that we want to have. And yet there is that thing in us that we can heal of the way we see the world. There is, how am I contributing to the world? And what you're talking about in the compassion, I've done a couple of radio interviews about this, because we have this strange thing in our culture that says be compassionate, and yet it's all outgoing. It's be compassionate to other people. And we need to be engaged in compassion for ourselves. If you
Mm,
don't have a gift inside yourself, you can't really give it. So when you're compassionate to other people, you may be looking for a payoff. But if you have compassion in here, you just give it freely because you give it to yourself first.
yes. And Jen Jordan, thank you so much for your comments. She says, great thoughts. Thank you. Thank you for watching us. We're here for you. In fact, um, we're here for you beyond today. And Roberta, you have an amazing blog and offerings at forrelationshiphelp.com. You can get the Feminine Power Cards at femininepowercards.com. I want to read one of these cards that speaks exactly to that. Practice radical self-acceptance. And the practice is an affirmation that you can say. I love myself so much so I can love others more deeply.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, Laura. And the term that I coined for what we're talking about here and that I've written about quite a bit, you can go and find it on the blog, is inclusive compassion. Remember to include yourself. Right?
Beautiful, beautiful.
And that's when we're compassionate to ourselves, we can quiet the inner critic and we can thank the inner courtroom and dismiss them, knowing that we can call them if we need them. They're always available, but they don't have to be sitting on our shoulder. But it requires that inner work and that willingness to be with yourself. So many times it's difficult for folks to actually set aside some time to be with yourself. It seems like a waste of time. That's what people tell me, like, oh, I'm too busy. I can't do that. And also, we're a little intrepid about what we'll discover. So maybe I really should get up and see if there really are 1,000 staples in that little box, you know? Uh, we'll do something to distract ourselves. But, you know, what a wonderful gift to give yourself to become compassionate to yourself. You know, I have some health challenges, and I had to learn that. Like when I need to stop or slow down, I need to stop or slow down, and I need to plan for it. I don't plan a day that is chock full because to become passionate to myself, I don't want to recover for 4 days, right? So you learn these things about what's possible for you, and make it okay. There's no way you should be, because you make up what you should be. Right? So you make up the story. And if you've set the bar as, oh, I should be 100 pounds lighter and have 40 more friends and in a fabulous relationship and be far more successful in my career, and therefore I'm not good enough, that's a story that you tell yourself. I want you to know that you matter, that you deserve to take up space and draw breath right this moment. And I really invite you to treat yourself as though that's true.
Ooh, and so what does that look like when you're so used to being hard on yourself, being that critic on yourself? Um, it takes practice. I will tell you, I have this other card. It's perfect for this. It says practice compassionate self-talk. Um, So if you're having trouble thinking of how you can do that, because I know I did, treat yourself like you would treat a baby who's learning to walk. Write down 5 things for which you can praise or encourage yourself for. Because when a baby's learning to walk and they're trying to pull themselves up and then they fall down, do you say, bad baby? See, you'll never walk? No, you say, good try, right? Good
Yeah.
try. Keep going. Look how good you're doing. You almost got there. So that's the shift to saying, instead of saying, I didn't make it to the gym, I thought about making it to the gym. And you know what? That's one step closer. In fact, maybe tomorrow I'll actually put on my sneakers, you know, and then we're good. We're doing stuff. We're feeling good. We're praising other people. We're praising ourselves. We're adding that positive energy to the environment. And if you think we need positive energy, like I do in this, world, that's what you can do. Do it for yourself. And you can like and share and love us here on Facebook if you want more positive energy in your life and you're willing to share it. Thank you so much for being here and for giving yourself the gift of this time and giving yourself the gift of compassion, compassionate self-talk. These cards are a lot about that. How do we shift from this critical place to this loving place? Because I really feel, and it's not that hard. It takes practice. It's not easy. It's not that hard though. But once you realize that the inner critic has an underlying desire for something good, but it's not the most effective route.
Right. Well, I would question that. And I'll tell you why I would
Okay.
question that. Because if you've had an upbringing where you were put down, made small, neglected, maybe even verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually abused, that inner critic is perpetuating all that you've been told when you were a child. So it's not there for good. It's there to keep you small. And so that's when you need help. if you've had a background like that, I work with my clients by video all over the world. There are many people who do that. You can get help. So it's not about having to get in your car and drive somewhere. But if you've come from a background like that, you have to rewrite your scripts on loving yourself. And so that inner critic is not you. It's all that inner courtroom, all those people who have told you that you're less than. And you need to change that script. And that's the step that you need to take. So if you've had a loving background, remember the loving things, and your inner critic will be much, much easier to shift. But if you come from a background that's harsh, that inner critic and that inner courtroom, they are just there all the time. I mean, I came from a background like that, and it took me years to not be peeling a potato with my mother on my side going, "You're taking off too much skin. I pay for those potatoes. What do you think you're doing?" I mean, that's what went on in my house. So it took years of going, "All right, Mom, I know how to peel potatoes. I even paid for them. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm good." And so this is the kind of thing that, yeah, there may be voices in there for good, but you may well have voices in there that need to be sent on their way, thanked for what they contributed, good or bad, and say, "I got it from here."
And would you also agree that the reason that mom's on your shoulder saying all these things and you're actually listening or have been bought into it for a while is because you're being loyal to mom, or you want to be the good girl? Why are we listening to that then?
Because you still believe that that voice is accurate, that you still are afraid that's true about you. And so look at your life and say, this is what I say to my clients all the time: what evidence and reality do you have that that's true? Right here, right now, in the last week, what evidence do you have that what your mother used to complain about is true? And they would say, "Oh, I don't have any." Okay, what are you going to believe? Where you are now or where you used to be? And that's what we have to do to release that. It's hard. I am not, don't for 1 minute think that it's easy. I tell every client who comes to see me who has an issue is that it's going to take a while. There are no quick fixes for these old problems. I get really concerned when people are saying, "Oh, come and I'll fix all this in 4 sessions." No, they won't, but they'll take your money. So these things are deep, and you just have to be kind to yourself and say, "Okay, I've got to go back, go down, pick them up, have a look at them in the light of my life now, say, do they serve me? Don't they serve me?" And make a replacement program for each one of them, because they are the malware. They're the virus that was put into your programming. And what a person like Laura can help you do is to go back and find those viruses, repair them, and restore your program to health.
Well said. And it does. And we're here. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to know. And you should know that you're not the only one going through this. So many of us, whether we had really harsh upbringings or mildly harsh, it doesn't really matter. How you take it matters. And that the fact that you want to transform it to something good matters. And that you will use it to do that matters hugely, especially if you have children and you're transforming yourself in front of them, even if they're adult children, is huge. My husband
Huge.
had an experience of his father, being an alcoholic, going through the AA process and really turning one of the AA success stories, turning his life around. That was the moment my husband could turn his life around.
Exactly. And that's a great example. And be kind to yourself. You remember, you're doing this not to blame yourself for living from the inner courtroom. You're doing it because you want to release yourself from the inner courtroom. And that's saying yes to yourself. And when you're saying yes to yourself, it's time. Like, I have a tape that I did. You see, it's a tape, so that's how long ago it was. I have a tape called "Be Positively Selfish." And we always think of selfish as that's terrible. But if we think about being positively selfish, that would mean that we would take some time with ourselves. We would reflect on it. We would take that time away from the business of life and reflect on it and say, no, would I like my life to be better? And you mentioned people who have had severe and mildly bad upbringings. If you had a fabulous upbringing, great place to start, but you still have to know who you are now and what are you doing and what's going on and how would you improve your life. So we all have growth and we can all enrich our lives by being willing to look at the inner critic in the inner courtroom and say, you're dismissed until I decide I need you.
Mm, that's right. We're in control now. It's all about what you really want to create. And thank you, Becky, for your compliment. She said such wise words. Thank you. And so we invite you to take more deep breaths and be really compassionate with yourself, because really to heal that critic, to come to terms with all of that, maybe release that inner courtroom. I love what you said. It's kind of like creating the inner, what's another imagery for the compassionate beings around you. Create the compassionate courtroom. It's not a really good term. Do you have a better term?
Well, maybe it's your compassionate support group.
Mm.
The people who say, yeah, you go girl, that's a good one, do more of that, that one really worked. Your support team, um, we can be our own support team. Not that we should rely only on ourselves. It's great to have some good people in our lives, but are you actually being your own support team is what we're talking about today? Or are the echoes of the past and the people of the past who have told you less than good things about you, are they winning? Yeah, often they are. So let's think about releasing them. Like I said, you can always get them back if you really want them, but give them the day off, okay?
Give them the day off. Find the cheerleaders in your life. I used to have friends who I would tell and who I'd seek out. Could I call you up on a day I'm having a bad day, and could you just tell me how wonderful I am, because I'm not believing it? And they said, absolutely, anytime. And I didn't need to do it all that often, but it really, really helped when I did need it and I was in the low of the lows. But just even knowing that they were there, it was like my little cheerleading squad, who I could say, so and so loves me, so and so loves me, they're cheering me on, I know they have my back. This is, in my life. So build your cheerleading squad. You may have to let go of some of your critic squad. If there are people in your life today, or put them, as a friend of mine said, on the 10-minute rule. Don't let them, on the phone with you or in your presence for more than 10 minutes. Oh, gotta go, the water's boiling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And have some people who are just there going, go Laura, go Laura, go Laura.
Go Rhoberta, go Rhoberta. That's what we do for you. If you need us to be your cheerleaders, let us know. We're here for you every other week. And if you want to make sure you don't miss another Transform Your Relationships live, at the end of this video, click the button that says notifications. It will give you a notification the next time we go live. So we're happy
to
be
in 2 weeks.
Yes, it will. And we'll have another fabulous topic. If you have a question, please feel free to put it in the comments and we'll get to you. Thank you for watching. Anything else, Rhoberta?
No, I just am really excited to see all these people lifting off, free from their jobs in the inner courtroom, and they're just drifting off with nothing to do. Yay!
And then the cheerleaders remain.
Yeah.
All right. We will see you next time. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.